reaching into your pocket and pulling out $1. Today, that might buy a tiny chocolate bar. But during the time of Abraham Lincoln, that same dollar could buy a full plate of food, bread, coffee, and enough supplies to survive the week. That's how powerful money once was. And today, we're traveling back to find out what $1, $10, $100, and $1,000 really meant when America was tearing itself apart. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand how $1,000 in this era could rewrite someone's destiny, and why ordinary people felt rich one day and desperate the next. Let's begin our time travel. It's 1863. The Civil War is raging. You're a factory worker in New York or Chicago. You wake before sunrise. Your hands are cracked, your back aches, your boots are worn thin. You work 12 hours surrounded by steam engines and clanging metal, and at the end of the day, you earn about $1. That single dollar could buy a full hot meal, several loaves of bread, coffee, sugar, flour, and salt. It could pay for a night in a cheap boarding house. It might cover candles for the week. For many Americans, $1 meant survival, not comfort, not savings. Survival. Today, $1 buys you half a vending machine disappointment. Back then, it bought dinner. But here's the darker truth. That same dollar could also pay child labor wages, buy a bottle of cheap whiskey, or purchase a newspaper listing battlefield deaths. Fear lived inside everyday purchases. Disease was common. Accidents were fatal. War headlines were routine. Tomorrow was never guaranteed. Imagine walking home knowing a cough could kill you, a factory accident could end you, or a draft notice could send you to the front lines. Pause for a second. Ask yourself this. If someone handed you $1 today, would you even bend down to pick it up? Back then, that dollar decided whether you ate. It decided whether your children slept hungry. It decided whether you stayed warm at night. And when you multiply that dollar by 10, everything changes. $10 in Lincoln's America was serious money. This is where breathing room began. With $10, you could cover a week or more of rent, buy full outfits including boots, stock food for an entire family, pay a doctor for multiple visits. For soldiers, $10 might represent months of pay. For immigrants arriving with hope and fear in their eyes, it could mean passage between cities or the supplies needed to start fresh. For widows, it meant keeping their home just a little longer. This is where money stopped being survival and started becoming stability. Pattern interrupt for a moment. Imagine opening your wallet today and finding an extra $10. Nice, right? Now imagine that $10 deciding whether your kids eat this week. Different world. $10 also meant dignity. You could buy soap, clean clothes. You could attend church without embarrassment. You could stand a little taller in public. But even $10 couldn't buy safety. Not from illness, not from war, not from economic collapse. Because in the 1860s there was no social safety net, no insurance, no unemployment checks. One bad week could erase everything. Here's a question to reset your attention. What would happen if your paycheck suddenly stopped tomorrow? That's how most Americans lived back then, always one step from disaster. And this is exactly why 3 digits mattered so much. $100. Now we're entering a different universe. $100 in Lincoln's time could buy several months of skilled wages, a horse and carriage, high-quality furniture, enough supplies to start a small business. With $100, you weren't just living, you were building. You could open a shop, buy land, invest in tools, escape poverty. This is where class lines became visible. Most Americans would never touch $100 in cash, but those who did controlled opportunity. Quick pattern interrupt. $100 back then was like walking into Starbucks today and buying the entire store, including the chairs. And here's the uncomfortable truth. While ordinary people fought and struggled, Wealth quietly positioned itself for the future. Soldiers blared on muddy battlefields while merchants expanded warehouses. Families mourned lost sons while entrepreneurs bought property at discounted prices. Crisis creates bargains, chaos creates opportunity, and money flows toward preparation. With $100, you could send children to school instead of factories. You could hire help. You could think beyond tomorrow. This is when money began to shape destiny. But we haven't reached the real dividing line yet, because everything changes at $1,000. $1,000 in Lincoln's America was elite-level wealth. This wasn't just money. This was influence. With $1,000, you could buy large plots of farmland, build a proper home, fund entire enterprises, support families for years. You could employ dozens of people, shape communities, decide who worked and who starved. This kind of money didn't just buy things, it bought leverage, and leverage builds legacy. Here's something most history books won't tell you. Many fortunes that still exist today started with amounts like this: quiet investments, strategic land purchases, businesses launched while the country burned. While most people were just trying to survive, a small few were positioning themselves for generations. Let that sink in. History doesn't reward comfort. It rewards preparation. Now let's slow this down and really feel it. Imagine holding $1,000 in 1863. You walk into a town and people notice. Merchants treat you differently. Bankers shake your hand. You have options. You can relocate. You can diversify. You can wait out hard times. Meanwhile, the average worker is praying they don't get sick. This is how wealth gaps are born. Not through luxury, through endurance, through access, through timing. Pattern interrupt. Today we argue about streaming subscriptions and coffee prices. Back then, people argued about whether their children would survive winter. And yet, something fascinating happens when you zoom out. Every generation believes they live in unprecedented times. Every generation feels squeezed. Every generation feels uncertain. But history tells us something powerful. Money has always been relative. $1 once meant dignity, 10 meant stability, 100 meant power, 1,000 meant destiny. And today we feel pressure because deep down we know our money doesn't stretch like it used to. Housing feels impossible. Groceries climb. Savings feel fragile. But here's the uncomfortable mirror. People in the 1860s felt exactly the same way. They feared inflation. They feared unemployment. They feared war. They feared the unknown. Yet inside every crisis sits opportunity. The people who understood this didn't panic. They positioned. They bought when others sold. They learned skills when others complained. They prepared while others hoped. And that's the emotional core of this story. Money isn't just currency. It's time. It's options. It's insulation from chaos. Now let me ask you something directly. If you suddenly had $1,000 in 1863, what would you do? Would you buy land, start a shop, fund education, or would fear push you into short-term comfort? Because that single decision could echo for generations. This is how legacies begin, not with millions, with moments. Now here comes the chilling part. If you think Lincoln's America was intense, wait until you see what money looked like during the rise of Adolf Hitler. Because in that era, inflation moved so fast that people became millionaires who couldn't afford bread. Life savings vanished overnight. Families burned cash for heat because it was cheaper than firewood. Imagine working your entire life only to watch your money become worthless paper. That's where we're going next. But before we end, let's bring this home. What does all this mean for you sitting here today? It means money has never been just about buying things. It's about buying time, buying choices, buying peace of mind. Every generation faces its own version of uncertainty. The names change, the technology changes, but the pressure stays the same. and opportunity always hides inside chaos. Those who recognize it early move ahead. Those who ignore it get dragged along. Now here's your cliffhanger. In the next video, we're diving into what $1 could buy in Nazi Germany and how hyperinflation destroyed middle-class families while creating sudden winners. Click the next video on your screen to continue the journey. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe for more cinematic history, because history doesn't repeat, but it definitely rhymes. I'll see you in the next chapter.
Paychecks lost value between morning and evening. Life savings vanished overnight. Families burned cash for heat because it was cheaper than firewood. Children played with stacks of banknotes like toys. Imagine working your entire life only to watch your money become worthless paper. Picture opening your wallet and realizing your past labor no longer mattered. Your discipline didn't matter. Your sacrifices didn't matter. That's what hyperinflation does. It doesn't just destroy currencies, it erases trust and shatters identity. Middle-class families vanished. Teachers, shop owners, accountants, retirees gone. Meanwhile, a small number of people who understood assets, foreign currency, and timing walked away incredibly wealthy. Crisis didn't treat everyone equally. It never does. Some lost everything. Some became legends. And that contrast is brutal because it shows us something uncomfortable. Money systems can fail. Governments can collapse. But preparation still matters. Knowledge still matters. Positioning still matters. So what does all this mean for you sitting here today? It means money has never been just about buying things. It's about buying time, buying choices, buying peace of mind. Every generation faces its own version of uncertainty. Different technology, different headlines, same pressure. Opportunity always hides inside chaos. Those who recognize it early move ahead. Those who ignore it get dragged along. You don't need to be rich. You need to be intentional. You don't need perfect timing. You need awareness. Learn skills, build resilience. Think long-term, protect your options, because history favors the prepared. And now here's your cliffhanger. In the next video, we're diving deep into what $1 could buy during Germany's hyperinflation and how entire middle classes were erased while sudden winners emerged overnight. Click the next video on your screen to continue the journey. If this deep dive resonated with you, subscribe for more cinematic history, because history doesn't repeat, but it definitely rhymes. I'll see you in the next chapter. Alright, here's next chapter in the same cinematic continuous flow style. No line breaks, ready for voiceover. This is where ordinary people enter the story. Not politicians, not generals, families, shopkeepers, teachers, farmers. This chapter isn't about power at the top. It's about survival at the bottom. Welcome to daily life inside the collapse of the Weimar Republic. Imagine waking up every morning and checking prices before checking the weather. Imagine rushing to spend your paycheck the second it arrives because waiting even a few hours means losing purchasing power. That was normal. Wives stood in bread lines while husbands carried wheelbarrows of cash. Children learned arithmetic by counting zeros on banknotes. Employers paid workers twice a day so they could sprint to markets before prices jumped again. A loaf of bread that cost thousands in the morning cost millions by evening. Rent doubled in weeks. Shoes became luxury items. Meat disappeared. Milk became a memory. Elderly couples who had saved faithfully for 40 years opened drawers filled with paper that meant nothing. Their entire lives reduced to colorful scraps. This is what hyperinflation looks like up close. It's not dramatic explosions, it's quiet humiliation. It's selling wedding rings for potatoes, it's trading furniture for flour. It's watching your children grow thinner while your savings grow larger in numbers but smaller in value. And the psychological damage ran even deeper. People stopped trusting money. Then they stopped trusting banks. Then they stopped trusting neighbors. Bartering replaced commerce. Hoarding replaced cooperation. Fear replaced patience. Communities fractured. Everyone became short-term thinkers because long-term planning felt impossible. When survival becomes the priority, vision disappears. And yet even here, some people adapted. Farmers with land ate better. Tradesmen with practical skills found work. Mechanics fixed bicycles for food. Seamstresses stitched clothes in exchange for eggs. People who could produce something real survived longer. People who only own paper suffered first. That's the lesson hiding beneath the tragedy. Assets beat promises, skills beat savings, ownership beats loyalty to currency. Meanwhile, a small class of investors quietly accumulated property. They bought apartment buildings from desperate owners. They acquired factories for fractions of their former value. They converted collapsing cash into tangible control. While everyone else was reacting, they were restructuring their future. Crisis redistributed wealth brutally and efficiently. Middle-class stability evaporated, extremes expanded, poverty deepened, power concentrated. And into this vacuum stepped voices offering certainty. When people are hungry, simple answers feel comforting. When systems fail, strong personalities look attractive. That's how economic collapse becomes political transformation. Not overnight, gradually, through exhaustion, through fear, through loss of faith in institutions. By the time Adolf Hitler rose to prominence, the groundwork had already been laid by empty cupboards and broken savings accounts. People didn't embrace radical change because they loved ideology. They embraced it because they were desperate for stability. That's the part textbooks often rush past. Economic pain comes first. Political consequences follow. Now pause and bring this back to yourself. You don't need hyperinflation to feel echoes of this. You feel it when your paycheck doesn't stretch like it used to. You feel it when housing outpaces income. You feel it when savings earn less than rising prices. Different scale. Same psychology. People begin to shorten their timelines. They stop thinking in decades. They start thinking in weeks. That's when smart decisions become harder. That's when comfort purchases replace long-term planning. That's when fear quietly takes the steering wheel. But here's the powerful pattern hidden inside every collapse. The people who survive best aren't the smartest. They're the most adaptable. They don't cling to old assumptions. They don't wait for things to go back to normal. They accept change early. They shift strategies. They build multiple income streams. They invest in skills. They reduce dependence on fragile systems. They turn uncertainty into motion. That's what separated survivors from victims in Weimar Germany, and it's what separates them in every crisis since. Money is never just money. It's stored labor, stored time, stored choices. When currency fails, only real value remains. Food production, shelter, skills, networks, assets that generate, everything else becomes noise. So ask yourself honestly, if your environment shifted suddenly, what would you still have? Could you create value? Could you adapt? Could you move? Could you wait? Or are you fully dependent on systems you don't control? This chapter isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. History shows us again and again that comfort is temporary, but preparation compounds. Wealth doesn't disappear, it migrates. It flows toward those who understand cycles, toward those who act before headlines turn red, toward those who build quietly while others argue. Every collapse creates two groups, those who lose stability and those who gain position. The difference is rarely intelligence. It's timing, it's mindset, it's willingness to move early. In the next chapter, we're stepping away from governments and currencies and zooming into something even more personal. The exact assets, skills, and behaviors that helped ordinary families survive collapse while others vanished. What actually protected people? What failed them? And what lessons still apply right now? Click the next video to continue. Subscribe for more cinematic history, because history doesn't repeat, but it definitely rhymes. I'll see you in the next chapter.